In a mansion where silence had replaced laughter, a millionaire's daughter fights for her life after days of agony. Given up on by doctors, the little girl has only 48 hours to live, and no hope seems to remain. But when the nanny, unjustly dismissed, returns, moved by an inexplicable force, something extraordinary happens. What she does beside the child transforms pain into a miracle and forever changes the destiny of that family. Emily pressed her forehead against the bus window, watching the London landscape rush by as she headed towards the Kensington district. The towering skyscrapers gave way to tree-lined streets and mansions, hidden behind high walls. Her fingers nervously clutched the strap of the worn-out handbag she carried. Inside was everything she needed for the interview: her degree in education, references from families she had worked for, and a letter of recommendation from her former employer. At only 23, Emily Clark carried more pain than someone her age should. 6 months earlier, she had lost her baby in the second trimester of pregnancy. Her boyfriend disappeared when he learned of the pregnancy, leaving her alone to face first the joy of motherhood and then the devastation of loss. Now, she was seeking a fresh start, far from Liverpool and its painful memories. When the bus stopped at the nearest stop to the address she was looking for, Emily got off, smoothing down the simple but elegant dress she had chosen for the occasion. She walked for 10 minutes until she reached an imposing wrought-iron gate. She pressed the intercom with trembling fingers. "The Harrison residence," a cold, impersonal female voice answered. "Good morning. I'm Emily Clark. I have an interview scheduled for the nanny position." The gate buzzed open electronically. Emily crossed the immense garden, marveling at the perfectly trimmed trees, decorative fountains, and beds of exotic flowers. The mansion rose before her like a fortress of marble and glass, a modern 3-story construction that exuded wealth and power. A tall, thin woman with grey hair impeccably tied in a bun was waiting for her at the door. She wore a grey suit and had an expression of permanent disapproval on her face. "I am Eleanor Harrison. Come in." Emily followed the woman into the house, feeling immediately diminished by the place's ostentatious luxury. Paintings that looked like they cost more than everything she had ever owned decorated the walls. The marble floor reflected the light streaming in through the enormous windows. "My son William is in an important video conference and will not be able to attend the interview," said Mrs. Harrison, leading her to a living room decorated in shades of white and gold. "As the matron of this house and Sophia's grandmother, I will be the one interviewing you." Emily sat on the edge of the velvet sofa, her back straight, trying to appear confident. "Your resume mentions experience with 2 families in Liverpool," Mrs. Harrison began, flipping through the documents Emily had sent beforehand. "Why did you decide to come to London?" "I needed a change," Emily replied, choosing her words carefully. "I suffered a personal loss and wanted to start over somewhere else." Mrs. Harrison's cold eyes analyzed her for a moment. "Sophia is 2 years old. She lost her mother in childbirth. My son is a very busy man. He runs one of the largest tech companies in the country. He has no time to dedicate to the child." "I understand," Emily said. "It's a delicate age when a mother's presence is greatly missed." "Precisely why I need someone competent, disciplined, who will follow the educational guidelines I have established to the letter," the woman continued. "I will not have spoiled children in this house. Sophia needs to grow up strong, independent. Her mother's fragility led her to the grave. I will not allow her daughter to follow the same path." Emily felt a chill at the coldness in the woman's words. How could someone speak like that about a child of only 2? "I would like to meet Sophia," Emily requested. "She is in her piano lesson. She has lessons every day, music, English, swimming. I believe in early stimulation." Mrs. Harrison stood up. "Come, I will show you Sophia's room and your facilities." Emily followed the woman down the wide corridor, up a marble staircase to the 2nd floor. They stopped before a white door with the name Sophia in gold letters. Inside, Emily found what looked more like a design showroom than a young child's room. Everything was in pastel tones, expensive furniture, toys organized by size and color on the shelves. Not one was out of place. "Where are her dolls?" Emily asked, noticing the absence of the most common toys for girls that age. "Anthropomorphic toys encourage excessive emotional attachment," Mrs. Harrison replied. "We prefer educational games, logic blocks, musical instruments." Emily's heart ached. What kind of childhood was this? They continued the tour of the house, passing by the special study room for Sophia, with Montessori materials and a small desk. On the wall, a detailed schedule outlined every minute of the girl's day, from 6 in the morning until 8 at night, when she went to bed. Her meals are prepared by a nutritionist. No sugar, gluten, or dairy. Sophia has a strictly balanced diet for optimized brain development. Emily tried to process it all. The routine seemed more appropriate for an adult in military training than for a small child. As they returned to the ground floor, they heard a door open. A young Asian woman, likely the piano teacher, came out accompanied by a small child. Emily's heart stopped when she saw Sophia for the first time. The girl was of an ethereal beauty, almost painful in her fragility. Very light blonde hair fell in perfect curls around a face as pale as porcelain. Huge blue eyes seemed to observe the world with a sadness incompatible with her age. She wore an expensive navy blue dress, white socks and patent leather shoes. She looked like a collector's doll, not a living child. "Sophia, this is Emily. She may be your new nanny," Mrs. Harrison said in a formal tone. The girl looked at Emily without expression, without curiosity, without the typical sparkle of children. She just gave a polite curtsy with her head, like a little lady trained for social occasions. "Hello, Sophia," Emily said, crouching down to be at the girl's level. "You have such a beautiful name. Did you know that Sophia means wisdom? It's a princess's name." For the first time, something akin to interest shone in the child's eyes. "Grandma says there are no princesses in real life," Sophia replied in a low voice, almost a whisper. "Your grandmother is right about many things," Emily answered with a gentle smile. "But every little girl can feel like a princess in her little heart, you know. It's a special secret just for us." Sophia blinked, surprised by those words, as if she had never heard anyone speak like that. "Sophia, go with Sarah for your lunch now. Then it's time for your mandatory rest," ordered Mrs. Harrison. The girl nodded obediently and followed the staff member. Emily watched her walk away, noticing her slumped little shoulders, her resigned posture. That was not a happy child. "So," asked Mrs. Harrison, "are you still interested in the position?" "The salary is excellent, Sundays off, your own room with a bathroom in the staff wing." "Yes," Emily answered without hesitation. Something inside her knew she needed to be near that child. "When can I start?" "Immediately, if possible." The last nanny quit without notice. Typical behavior of these girls without proper formal education. Emily nodded. "I can get my things and come back today." As they finalized the details, Emily heard firm footsteps approaching. She turned and saw a tall man enter the room. He must have been around 40, with dark hair slightly graying at the temples, an angular face marked by lines of fatigue and worry. He wore an impeccable suit that surely cost the equivalent of months of her salary. "William, this is Emily Clark, Sophia's new nanny," Mrs. Harrison introduced. The man glanced at her briefly, with the disinterest of someone who had seen many nannies come and go. "I hope she lasts longer than the last one," he commented dryly, addressing his mother more than Emily herself. "I need someone competent to look after Sophia while I'm in China next week." "I will treat your daughter with all care and affection, Mr. Harrison," Emily said, lifting her chin. William finally looked at her directly, with some surprise, as if only now truly noticing her presence. His eyes, the same deep blue as Sophia's, studied her for a moment. "Take good care of her," he said simply before leaving the room, already speaking on the phone in fluent English. 3 hours later, Emily returned to the Harrison mansion with her small suitcase containing all she owned. She was shown to the staff room on the 3rd floor, a simple but comfortable space. She arranged her few clothes in the wardrobe and sat on the bed for a moment, trying to absorb the sudden change in her life. Her attention was drawn to the window, from where she could see part of the garden. Down below, alone on a carved wooden swing, was Sophia. The girl swung lightly, without enthusiasm, her little feet barely touching the ground. A rich child who had everything except what truly mattered. Emily instinctively touched the small bracelet of colored beads on her wrist, the only tangible memory of the baby she had lost. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Was it you who brought me here, my little angel? To take care of this little girl who needs love so much?" She felt a gentle breeze enter through the window, like a silent answer. At that moment, Emily knew she was not there by chance. She had found a purpose for her broken heart, to fill with love the empty world of that child who, like her, had known loss too soon. The alarm clock rang at 5:30 in the morning. Emily opened her eyes, still getting used to the new room. It was her third day at the Harrison mansion, and she had already realized she would need all her energy to face what was to come. After a quick shower, she dressed in the simple uniform Mrs. Harrison required: black trousers and a white blouse, hair tied back in a ponytail. At 6 o'clock sharp, she knocked gently on the door of Sophia's room. "Good morning, little princess," Emily whispered, entering the dimly lit room. She approached the bed where the girl slept. So still she looked like a painting. "Time to wake up." Sophia opened her eyes immediately, as if she had never been truly asleep, just waiting. There was no crying, no whining, no plea to stay in bed just a little longer, behaviors typical of children her age. The girl simply sat up in bed, erect, her little blue eyes empty of emotion. "Good morning, Miss Emily," she replied formally, like a miniature adult. "Today we're going to do something different," Emily said, opening the curtains to let in the golden morning light. "How about before breakfast we say good morning to the sun?" Sophia frowned, confused. "How do you say good morning to the sun? Grandma says the schedule has no time for games before the afternoon's educational activities." Emily smiled, sitting on the edge of the bed. "It's a very quick game, I promise. And it's educational too, because we're going to learn about nature." She extended her hand to the girl. "Shall we try?" Hesitantly, Sophia placed her small, cold hand in Emily's. Together they went to the window. Emily opened it completely, letting in the cool morning breeze. "Now stretch your arms out like this," Emily demonstrated, raising her arms to the sky, "and say, 'Good morning, sun.' Thank you for another beautiful day." Sophia glanced from side to side, as if afraid someone might see her doing something so off-protocol. Timidly, she raised her thin little arms. "Good morning, sun," she whispered, almost inaudibly. "Louder," Emily encouraged. "The sun is far away, it needs to hear your thanks." A small smile, perhaps the first in a long time, appeared on Sophia's lips. "Good morning, sun," she shouted, surprising herself with her own audacity. "Wonderful," Emily celebrated, clapping. "The sun definitely heard and is going to send a special day just for you." Sophia's eyes sparkled with something new, a flicker of childish joy that Emily suspected had been systematically suppressed in that house. The rest of the morning followed the strict schedule set by Mrs. Harrison. A bath with warm water, never hot as it softens one's character, a balanced breakfast, oatmeal porridge without sugar, a piece of fruit and protein, followed by 30 minutes of educational reading. Emily observed, learning the routine, looking for small gaps where she could introduce moments of true childhood. During the reading, she chose a book about an adventurous princess instead of the scientific tomes for children that filled the shelves. "Grandma says fantasy stories are a waste of time," Sophia commented, looking nervously at the door, as if her grandmother might appear at any moment. "Sometimes we need a little fantasy to better understand reality," Emily replied. "And this book also teaches about courage, kindness and friendship. Those are important values, don't you think?" The girl nodded, snuggling closer to Emily as they listened to the story. For the first time, Sophia asked questions, pointed at the illustrations and reacted to the plot twists. It was as if a wild, frightened creature was slowly beginning to trust, to reveal itself. At 10 o'clock, as per the schedule, it was time for her English lesson with a private tutor. Emily accompanied Sophia to the study, where a young man with glasses awaited her with flashcards and textbooks. During the lesson, Emily organized Sophia's clothes in the adjacent closet, always attentive to what was happening. "Very good, Sophia," the teacher said repeatedly, but without real enthusiasm. The girl responded mechanically, reciting words without understanding their emotional meaning. Cat, dog, house, family. When the teacher left, Emily approached Sophia with a conspiratorial smile. "Do you know what's really fun in English?" "Singing," she said, picking up the tablet she used to follow the girl's schedule. "Shall we learn English by singing?" In seconds, a cheerful children's song in English was playing softly on the device. Emily began to sing and dance, inviting Sophia with gestures. At first, the girl just watched open-mouthed. Gradually, she began to imitate the movements, then to hum along and finally to smile and participate actively. It was at that moment that the door opened. Mrs. Harrison entered the room, freezing the scene with her austere presence. "What is the meaning of this?" she asked coldly. Emily immediately turned off the music but maintained her composure. "We are reinforcing her English learning through music, Mum. Studies show that children absorb vocabulary much more quickly when it's associated with melodies and movements." Mrs. Harrison narrowed her eyes. "I do not see this on the schedule." "It's a complementary technique," Emily replied firmly. "Sophia's tutor just left and said she is doing very well." The girl looked from one to the other, the joy rapidly evaporating from her face. "Very well," Mrs. Harrison conceded after a tense moment. "But remember, Miss Clark, that Sophia has a program carefully designed to maximize her development. There is no room for frivolities." "I understand perfectly, Ma'am," Emily replied, holding her gaze. When the woman left, Sophia seemed to wilt like a flower without water. Emily knelt beside her. "It's okay, Princess. Sometimes grown-ups forget how important it is to play, but we can have our special secrets, right? When we're alone." A small smile returned to the girl's lips as she nodded shyly. The following days established a pattern. Emily followed the schedule to the letter when Mrs. Harrison was around, but in the moments alone with Sophia, she filled the girl's life with small joys, improvised songs during bath time, made-up stories at bedtime, simple games that concealed important lessons. Little by little, the transformation became visible. Sophia's cheeks gained color. Her posture became more relaxed and, most importantly, she began to smile spontaneously. At night, when Emily put her to bed, the girl was no longer stiff and formal. She would snuggle into the nanny's arms, asking for one more story or one more song. A week after her arrival, something extraordinary happened. Emily was combing Sophia's hair after her bath, humming a lullaby from the north of England that her own mother used to sing to her. "Hush, little baby. Don't say a word. Mama's going to buy you a mockingbird." Sophia suddenly turned and hugged Emily around the neck, with surprising strength for such a small child. "I love you, Mummy," she whispered against her chest. Emily froze, the comb in midair, her heart racing. Tears immediately welled up in her eyes. "My love," she finally said, hugging the child with all the care in the world, as if she might break. "I love you so, so much too." At that moment, a movement at the door caught her attention. William Harrison was standing there watching the scene with an indescribable expression. How long had he been there? What had he witnessed? "Daddy!" Sophia exclaimed, noticing him too. The way the girl said that word, with genuine joy, no longer with the fearful formality of before, was another transformation. William entered the room, a man clearly out of place in the childish environment, awkward in his attempt to interact. He had just returned from China, where he had spent the week in business meetings. "Hello, little one," he said, approaching cautiously. "I see that you and Miss Emily are getting along well." "She taught me to say good morning to the sun," Sophia recounted excitedly, "and to sing in English. And she tells me stories about brave princesses who save the day." William looked at Emily with an expression that mixed surprise and curiosity. "It seems you two have been having a lot of fun." "Within the established educational parameters, of course," Emily hurried to say, fearing for her job. "We just used more playful methods to—" "You don't need to explain," William interrupted with a gentle gesture. For the first time since she had met him, Emily saw him truly smile. "I've never seen Sophia so alive." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Alive. That was exactly it. The girl was finally beginning to live, not just exist. "Daddy, can Mommy Emily have dinner with us tonight?" Sophia asked, taking her father's hand. An awkward silence followed. Emily felt her face burn. "Sophia, dear, I'm not— Mr. Harrison is your father, but I'm just your nanny. You have a mommy in heaven who loves you very much." "I know," the girl replied with the disconcerting wisdom children sometimes display, "but you're my mommy here. You can be both, can't you?" William knelt to his daughter's level, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, a gesture of tenderness that seemed new to him. "Miss Emily takes very good care of you, doesn't she?" he asked softly. Sophia nodded vigorously. "She makes my heart feel warm." William looked at Emily over his daughter's head, something indefinable crossing his face. "That's very special." Turning back to Sophia, he continued, "And yes, Mommy Emily can have dinner with us tonight. We'll ask Rose to set an extra place at the table." "That's not necessary, sir," Emily protested, feeling completely out of place. "I prefer to have dinner in the kitchen with the other staff." "I insist," William said, standing up. There was a determination in his voice that brooked no refusal. It's past time I got to know the person who managed to bring my daughter back to life. That night, uncomfortable in her uniform at the opulent dining table, Emily faced the glacial stare of Mrs. Harrison, who clearly disapproved of her presence. William, on the other hand, seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her. He asked about her education, her experience with children, her teaching techniques. I believe children need structure, yes, Emily explained when asked about her philosophy. But they also need space to be children, to marvel at the world, to explore, to feel safe enough to make small mistakes and learn from them. Mrs. Harrison cleared her throat. Discipline and excellence, William. That is how you were raised, and look where it has gotten you. An uncomfortable silence followed. Emily realized she had touched a sensitive point in the family dynamic. I've had many professional achievements, Mother, William finally replied, looking at Sophia, who was happily eating her dessert. A special exception allowed that night. But perhaps I have neglected other important areas of life. When Emily stood up to take Sophia to bed, she felt William's hand briefly touch her arm. Thank you, he said simply, his voice low so only she could hear, for bringing colour back into her world. That night, after Sophia fell asleep, Emily stood for a long time watching the starry sky from her bedroom window. Something was changing in that house, and inside her too. The emptiness she had carried since the loss of her baby was slowly beginning to fill with a new kind of love. And, perhaps even more frighteningly, she was beginning to feel something indefinable for her little princess's father, a man from a world completely different from hers, separated by chasms of social class and life experience. What are you getting yourself into, Emily Clark? She whispered to herself, closing the curtain. Little did she know that on the floor below, Mrs. Harrison was making an important call to 3 of her oldest friends, women of London's high society. We need to talk, she said in a low, fierce voice, about how to deal with an opportunist who is infiltrating our family. The full moon illuminated the Harrison mansion, indifferent to the human dramas unfolding under its silver glow. In her room, for the first time in weeks, Sophia slept soundly, a soft smile on her childish lips as she hugged the small plush unicorn that Emily had smuggled into the house. Mrs. Harrison adjusted the pearls around her neck as she watched her 3 closest friends settle into the armchairs in her mansion's tea room. It was a decades-old ritual. Every Thursday at 4 in the afternoon, the 4 women would gather to discuss the lives of others under the pretext of enjoying imported teas and fine pastries. Thank you for coming on such short notice, my dears, Mrs. Harrison said, pouring the steaming Earl Grey into the English porcelain cups. After that dramatic phone call, how could we not? Replied Beatrice Montgomery, a septuagenarian with artificially blonde hair and jewellery far too ostentatious even for a casual meeting. Is it about William? Asked Celia Prescott, the most discreet of the group, always well informed about the secrets of London's high society. I heard Harrison Tech is about to close a billion-dollar deal with American investors. No, it's not about business, Mrs. Harrison sighed, lowering her voice dramatically. It's about something much worse. A threat within my own home. The 3 women leaned forward simultaneously, their eyes gleaming with curiosity. Sophia's new nanny, Mrs. Harrison continued, pronouncing the word nanny as if it were a contagious disease. A first-class opportunist. Young, pretty, and with a very obvious plan. The classic, commented Veronica Thornton, the 4th member of the group, known for having married and divorced 3 times, each time with progressively wealthier men. Seduce the millionaire widower, using the child as a bridge. Exactly. Mrs. Harrison placed her cup on the table with a clatter louder than necessary. In just 3 weeks, this Emily has managed to completely charm my granddaughter. Sophia calls her Mommy Emily, can you imagine? Shocked gasps echoed through the room. And William? Inquired Celia. Has he realized what's happening? Men, Mrs. Harrison huffed, are completely blind to this kind of manipulation. He's delighted because the girl is finally smiling and talking more. As if discipline and education were less important than smiles. And what's this woman's background? Asked Beatrice, ever practical. Have you investigated? A slow, calculated smile spread across Mrs. Harrison's face. Superficially, yes. A degree in education from a second-rate university in the north. Worked for 2 families in Liverpool, apparently good references. But there's something in her past, a personal loss she vaguely mentioned in the interview. I intend to find out exactly what it is. You need a private investigator, suggested Veronica, pulling a gold-embossed card from her crocodile handbag. Augustus Miles, discreet, efficient, and unscrupulous, he helped me uncover my second husband's indiscretions. Mrs. Harrison took the card, examining it closely. Perfect, but we need more than information. We need a plan to expose this adventuress before she sinks her claws into the Harrison fortune. The four women put their heads together, plotting like generals at war. Outside the ajar door, the housekeeper Rose passed by with a pile of clean towels, instinctively slowing her pace to listen. Her face creased with worry. She liked the new nanny, a kind and hard-working young woman who, for the first time in 2 years, had managed to bring joy to little Sophia. She had to find a way to warn Emily about the storm that was brewing. Meanwhile, on the other side of the mansion, completely oblivious to the conspiracy forming against her, Emily was playing with Sophia in the garden. It was a stolen moment from the schedule, the 15 minutes between the French lesson and the swimming session that Emily had convinced the driver to delay due to traffic. "Higher, Mummy! Higher!" Sophia shouted, her little legs dangling in the air as Emily pushed the swing. "Hold on tight, Princess," Emily replied, laughing with the child's genuine joy. From one of the large windows of his second-floor office, William watched the scene, the phone forgotten in his hand. The important video conference paused. Something long forgotten revived in his chest as he saw his daughter like this, so free, so much a child. He suddenly remembered his own childhood, the rigidity, the constant demands, the absence of purely playful moments. "Sir," his assistant called through the phone, "the investors are waiting." "Yes, of course," he replied automatically, forcing himself back to work. But his eyes kept straying to the window, to the young woman with the radiant smile who, in such a short time, had completely transformed his daughter, and was beginning, without him even consciously realizing it, to transform him too. 2 weeks later, as August began to show the first signs of approaching spring in London, Emily received an unexpected day off. "I'm taking Sophia for a day with her father," William announced at breakfast, to everyone's surprise. "I thought we'd go to the zoo, then have lunch out." Emily couldn't hide her smile. It was exactly the kind of normal, healthy experience the girl needed, a day of just being a daughter and a father, without schedules or forced educational activities. "An excellent idea," she approved, receiving an icy glare from Mrs. Harrison. "And what will you do with your day off?" the older woman asked, a calculating glint in her eyes. "Oh, I thought I'd get to know the city a bit," Emily replied. "Maybe visit Oxford Street, Hyde Park." "Nonsense," Mrs. Harrison interrupted with a dismissive wave. "Why wander around like a common tourist when you can do something truly special?" She turned to her son. "William, why don't you lend Emily the driver and one of your cards so she can go shopping in Knightsbridge? The poor girl only has those simple clothes. It would be an appropriate thank you for her good work." Emily felt her face burn. "That's not necessary, ma'am. I'm perfectly happy with—" "Excellent idea, Mother," William interrupted, to Emily's astonishment. "I insist, Emily, you've done wonders for Sophia. Consider it an advance bonus." Before Emily could protest again, he took a gleaming black card from his wallet and handed it to her. "No limits, no worries. Buy whatever you want for yourself." The day that followed was surreal. Accompanied by the family driver, George, Emily found herself walking through the corridors of a shopping district so luxurious that there were no price tags in the windows, a clear sign that if you had to ask the price, you couldn't afford it. "I don't feel comfortable with this," she confessed to George, who patiently accompanied her from shop to shop. "It feels wrong." "If I may, miss," replied the middle-aged man, who had served the Harrison family for nearly 20 years, "I've never seen little Sophia as happy as she's been since you arrived, and Mr. William has changed too. He's more present, more human." Emily considered the driver's words. It was true that William was gradually changing. He had started coming home earlier some days, sometimes appearing in Sophia's room at bedtime, to listen to the stories Emily told. Once she had caught him watching them from a distance during an impromptu dance session in the living room, a smile on his lips that completely transformed his usually austere face. "Even so," she insisted, "I didn't come to this house to get expensive gifts or—" Anything other than my salary. George gave an understanding smile. You're different from the others, that's why they're afraid. They? Afraid of me? Emily laughed at the absurd idea. Mrs. Harrison especially, George confirmed, lowering his voice. Rose told me she's hired a private investigator to look into your past. Emily's blood ran cold. An investigator? George nodded solemnly. Be careful, Miss Emily. Mrs. Harrison is not someone to be underestimated when it comes to protecting what she considers hers. The driver's words stayed with Emily throughout the day, turning what should have been a pleasant experience into something fraught with anxiety. What could they find out about her? Her life had been simple, honest. The only secret she kept was the pain of having lost a child, something intimate, personal, that shouldn't be exposed by strangers. By the end of the day, she forced herself to buy a few simple but elegant pieces. Nothing extravagant, just enough not to seem ungrateful for William's generosity. When the driver dropped her off at the mansion, it was already evening. To her surprise, she found William sitting alone on the terrace, a glass of whiskey in his hand, watching the starry sky. Welcome back, he said, standing up. Did you have fun? It was an interesting experience, Emily replied cautiously. Thank you for your generosity, but I must say I feel uncomfortable receiving gifts of this kind. William studied her for a moment, the soft light from the garden lanterns reflecting in his eyes. Do you know what's most extraordinary about you, Emily Clark? He finally asked. You're the first person in years who isn't trying to get something from me. Emily didn't know how to respond. A silence heavy with meaning stretched between them. How was the zoo? She finally asked, steering the conversation to safer ground. William's face lit up. Incredible. Sophia was so excited, so curious about everything. Did you know she does a perfect monkey impression? Where did she learn that? Emily laughed, relaxing a little. We have our secret animal impression sessions during bath time. Don't tell Mrs. Harrison. Your mother, William began, the smile fading, has very definite ideas about education. I've noticed, Emily replied diplomatically. William took a step towards her. Emily, William! Mrs. Harrison's voice cut through the night like a razor. She was standing at the door of the house, her rigid silhouette against the interior light. Sophia is asking for her father's good-night kiss. I'm coming, he replied without taking his eyes off Emily. We'll continue this conversation later. But the conversation was never resumed. In the days that followed, William was consumed by a business crisis that kept him away from the mansion. Mrs. Harrison, on the other hand, became a constant, almost suffocating presence, scrutinizing every minute Emily spent with Sophia. A week later, Rose sought out Emily discreetly in the laundry room. Miss, we need to talk, the housekeeper said, nervously checking if they were truly alone. Something is about to happen. Mrs. Harrison received a man in her private office yesterday, that investigator. And then she had a meeting with her friends. They were all very agitated, talking about evidence and catching someone in the act. Emily felt a knot in her stomach. Evidence of what? I haven't done anything wrong. It doesn't matter, Rose replied sadly. When people like Mrs. Harrison decide someone is a threat, they create their own truths. That night, as she put Sophia to bed, Emily felt a growing fear. The girl was blossoming every day, more talkative, healthier, happier. The bond between them had deepened in a way Emily had never imagined possible. Mommy Emily, Sophia murmured sleepily, clinging to her. Promise you'll never leave. Emily hesitated, feeling tears burn her eyes. I'll be with you whenever I can, my love, and even when we can't be together physically, I'll always be in your little heart, and you'll be in mine. I don't understand, the girl replied, frowning. Why can't we always be together? Sometimes, Emily explained carefully. Grown-ups have to do difficult things, make complicated decisions. But I want you to know something very important. No matter what happens, I love you more than anything in this world. After Sophia fell asleep, Emily remained by her side, watching her little face relaxed in sleep, her cheeks now rosy, her small body having gained weight and health under her care. How could she protect this child from what was to come? 2 days later, the other shoe finally dropped. Emily was tidying Sophia's room while the girl had her piano lesson downstairs when Mrs. Harrison entered abruptly, followed by William. The man's face was grim, the lines of tension around his mouth more pronounced than ever. Miss Clark, Mrs. Harrison began with icy formality. "My son would like to speak with you about a very serious matter." William looked uncomfortable, torn. He was holding something in his hand, a folder. "Emily," he said, his voice controlled, "some issues have come up that we need to clarify." "What issues?" Emily asked, her heart racing. William opened the folder, revealing photographs. There were images of her entering a small guest house in Clerkenwell, the place where she had left some of her things when she moved into the mansion. Other photos showed her talking to the guest house owner, an elderly man. "You've been keeping a secret address," William said, not as an accusation but as a question. "It's not a secret," Emily explained, confused. "It's just where I stored some belongings that didn't fit in my room here. Some books, keepsakes. And this?" he continued, revealing another photo. This one showed Emily at the shops on her day off, talking animatedly with George, the driver. In the photo they looked intimate, conspiratorial. "You and George seem very close." "He was just advising me on the shops," Emily protested, beginning to understand what was happening. "This is absurd, Mr. Harrison. Someone is trying to create a narrative that doesn't exist." "And what about this?" Mrs. Harrison interrupted, pulling something that sparkled in the light from her own handbag. An exuberant diamond necklace. "Found hidden among your things in your sock drawer. The housekeeper discovered it during a routine cleaning." "What?" Emily exclaimed, genuinely shocked. "I've never seen that necklace in my life. I would never steal anything, let alone something so valuable." "It's a family heirloom," Mrs. Harrison continued relentlessly. "A necklace that belonged to my mother and was to be passed down to Sophia when she turned 15. Estimated value, £100,000. Emily felt dizzy. This couldn't be happening. "Mr. Harrison, please," she begged, turning to the man who looked increasingly disturbed. "You know me. You know my character. I would never do this. Someone planted that necklace. They're trying to frame me." William ran a hand through his hair, clearly distressed. "Why would anyone do that, Emily? Who would have a motive?" The look Emily shot at Mrs. Harrison was too eloquent to be ignored. The older woman straightened her posture, offended. "Are you implying that I would stage such a situation? That I would plant valuable jewelry just to frame an employee? Why would I do something so low?" "Because you can't stand to see your granddaughter happy with me," Emily burst out, the tears finally overflowing. "Because you can't stand to see your son getting close to a poor servant girl, as you surely call me when I'm out of earshot. Because you'd rather see Sophia unhappy and sick than accept that she needs love, not just discipline." A heavy silence fell over the room. William looked from his mother to Emily, the conflict evident on his face. "Those are very serious accusations, Emily," he finally said, "from both sides." "William," Mrs. Harrison intervened, her voice trembling with performative indignation. "Are you going to believe this adventuress over your own mother? Over the evidence before your eyes?" "Mr. Harrison," Emily said, regaining her composure and wiping her tears, "I came to this house to care for Sophia, to give her the love and security every child deserves. I did that to the best of my ability, with all my heart. If you believe even for a second that I would be capable of betraying that trust, of stealing from this family, then there is no longer a place for me here." William looked torn in two, staring at the folder in his hands, as if it contained not photographs but shards of his own shattered heart. "Emily, he began, but couldn't finish. The unsaid was enough. That moment of hesitation said everything Emily needed to know. He doubted her. After everything, after seeing Sophia's transformation, after the conversations, the shared moments, the small connections they had built, he doubted. "I understand," she said, her voice now steady despite the pain. "I'll pack my things and leave today." "Emily, wait," William called. But she was already leaving the room, her back straight, her dignity intact, despite the tears she could no longer hold back. In her small room in the staff wing, Emily threw her few possessions into the same suitcase she had arrived with. The new clothes, bought with William's card, she left neatly folded on the bed along with a note. "I never wanted anything more than what you already paid me. Take good care of her. E." Outside it began to rain, one of those sudden late winter storms. Emily hesitated for just a moment, thinking of Sophia. The girl was in her lesson, unaware of what was happening. Was it better this way? To leave without a heart-wrenching goodbye? Or would it be just one more person inexplicably disappearing from the child's life? The decision was made for her when she heard Sophia's thin, desperate voice calling for her in the hallway. "Mommy Emily! Mommy Emily!" The girl appeared at the door, her eyes wide with panic. Behind her, the piano teacher looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Miss Emily," the young woman said. She heard raised voices and ran out in the middle of her lesson. "It's all right," Emily assured her, kneeling to be at the child's level. "Sophia, my love, I need to talk to you." How do you explain to a 2-year-old that her world is about to fall apart again? That the person who promised to stay by her side had to leave? "You're leaving," Sophia said, not as a question but as a statement. Her little blue eyes, now welling with tears, saw more than any child should. "Yes, Princess," Emily replied, her voice choked with emotion. "Sometimes grown-ups have to separate, even when they love each other very much." "Why?" the girl asked, the simple word carrying all the weight of the world's injustice. Emily hesitated. What could she say? How to explain betrayal, distrust, class prejudice? "Because not everyone can see the magic that exists between us," she finally answered. "But I want you to know something very important." She placed her hand on Sophia's chest. "Right here inside we have a connection that no one can break. No matter where I am, I will always be here with you. And you will always be here with me." She pointed to her own heart. "Don't go," Sophia begged, clinging to her with all the strength of her thin little arms. "Please, Mommy, don't go." Emily hugged her one last time, feeling the small heart beating rapidly against hers. "Be strong, my little warrior princess. Remember all the stories I told you about brave girls. Now it's your turn to be brave." With her heart in pieces, Emily gently disentangled herself from the girl's desperate embrace. She handed her to the piano teacher, who looked on the verge of tears. "Take good care of her," she asked, before picking up her suitcase and walking down the stairs. At the mansion door, William was waiting, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. The rain was now pouring down. "You don't have to leave in this weather," he said. "George can take you when the rain stops." "I'd rather go now," Emily replied, her dignity intact despite the pain. "Don't worry, I've been through worse storms." Before he could answer, she stepped out into the rain, the small suitcase protected under her coat, her heart left behind with a blue-eyed girl who at that very moment was crying inconsolably in the arms of a frightened piano teacher. From the top of the staircase, Mrs. Harrison watched the scene with an impassive expression. When the door closed behind Emily, she slowly descended the steps to where her son remained, motionless as a statue. "I did what was necessary," she said simply. "One day you will understand that it was to protect our family." William did not reply. He continued to stare at the closed door, as if he could see through it to the figure of Emily disappearing into the rain, taking with her something indefinable that, only now, he realized was essential. The rain gave no respite in London, falling incessantly for 3 days. On the streets of Clerkenwell, water ran in small cascades down the steep slopes, forming temporary streams that carried away leaves and debris. From the narrow window of her room at St. Vincent's Guest House, Emily watched the grey sky, so much like her state of mind. A week had passed since she left the Harrison mansion, a week of sleepless nights and empty days, filled only by the pain of separation. It wasn't just a lost job, it was a heart broken into so many pieces she doubted it could ever be mended. "Miss Emily," called Mr. Arthur, the guest house owner, knocking gently on the ajar door. "I brought you some chamomile tea. It will help calm your nerves." Emily turned, trying to smile at the 70-year-old man who had treated her like a daughter since she arrived. "Thank you, Mr. Arthur. You're very kind. You need to eat properly," he continued, placing the steaming cup on the small table beside the bed. "You're wasting away. And we need to treat that cold before it turns into something worse." Emily nodded distractedly. The cold she had caught walking in the torrential rain was the least of her problems. What truly consumed her was worry for Sophia. How was the girl? Was she crying for her? Had she retreated back into her silent, sad world? Another one of these arrived. "Mr. Arthur said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. "The third one this week." Emily took the envelope, immediately recognizing the Harrison Tech letterhead. Inside, like the previous ones, was a check for an exorbitant amount, far beyond what would be fair compensation for dismissal without just cause, and a short handwritten note. "Please get in touch." "William, what are you going to do with this one?" the landlord asked as Emily placed the envelope with the others, untouched in the dresser drawer. "The same as the others," she replied, taking a sip of the tea. "Nothing," Mr. Arthur sighed, sitting in the only chair in the small room. "Lass, I know it's none of my business, but when a rich man is willing to pay so much just to talk to a young woman, he usually has something important to say." Emily shook her head. "He had his chance to say something important when it mattered. He chose to believe lies instead of trusting me." "Pride doesn't fill your stomach, child," the old man replied with the simple wisdom of one who has seen much of life. "And at this rate, you'll soon not have enough for the rent. You haven't eaten properly for a week, haven't left this room except to use the loo. Is this living?" It wasn't living, Emily knew. It was survival at its most basic. Her savings, already meager, were quickly running out. She needed to find a new job, start over. But how? Every time she thought about caring for another child, her heart contracted painfully. No child would be Sophia. No home would be the one that, despite all its problems, had become hers in such a short time. "I'll get better," she promised, more to end the conversation than out of genuine belief. "I'll start looking for work tomorrow." Mr. Arthur gave her a gentle pat on the knee before standing up. "That's the spirit. Life goes on, lass, no matter how hard the blow." When the landlord left, Emily went back to looking out the window. The rain was finally beginning to ease, giving way to a fine mist that covered the city like a veil. She felt a single tear run down her face, mingling with the condensation on the window pane. "Where are you, my princess?" she whispered to the void. "Do you still look at the sun every morning? Do you still remember our songs?" At the Harrison mansion, the atmosphere was equally somber. Sophia had once again transformed into the silent, apathetic girl from before, but now with an added component: anger. She refused to eat, to participate in lessons, to follow any of Mrs. Harrison's instructions. When thwarted, she had fits of rage that no one could control. "I want Mommy Emily, I want Mommy Emily," she would scream, throwing herself on the floor, her little face red from crying. William was desperate. In just 1 week, he had seen all the progress his daughter had made completely vanish. The girl who had finally smiled, talked, played, was once again locked in her inner world, but now with a pain that was palpable, that echoed through the mansion's corridors. "You need to put a stop to this, Mrs." Harrison insisted, as they watched Sophia from the other side of her bedroom door, where the child had cried herself to sleep. "It's just a phase. Children are resilient. She'll soon forget this." "Nanny." "Look at her, mother," William replied, his voice low and tense. "She's wasting away. She's not eating, not sleeping properly, crying all the time. She is merely testing her limits. She needs firmness, not coddling." William ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that had become increasingly frequent in recent days. "I've tried to contact Emily several times. I've sent drivers to the guest house where she's staying, sent checks, notes. Nothing. She refuses to speak to me." "And why should she?" Mrs. Harrison retorted coldly. "The girl was accused of theft in front of witnesses after everything she did for Sophia. Her pride is wounded." "It wasn't just her pride we wounded," William muttered, more to himself than to his mother. The second week without Emily passed even more slowly than the first. Sophia began to refuse even to bathe or change her clothes. Her hygiene deteriorated. When a new nanny was hired, a middle-aged woman with impeccable references and decades of experience, the girl simply ignored her as if she didn't exist. In the third week, what had been a silent strike turned into something much more serious. Sophia began to show physical symptoms: a low but persistent fever, a worsening lack of appetite, extreme apathy. The pediatrician, called urgently, diagnosed childhood depression aggravated by a possible onset of infection. "Children can literally get sick from sadness," the doctor explained to William. "Their immune system becomes compromised, making them vulnerable to opportunistic infections. I recommend an immediate psychological evaluation and constant monitoring of her physical symptoms." A child psychologist was called, but her attempts to connect with Sophia were fruitless. The girl refused to speak, to draw, to express herself in any way. "She is grieving," the professional concluded after several frustrated sessions. "For such a young child, the sudden loss of a maternal figure for the second time is devastating. She doesn't have the emotional tools to process it." The situation deteriorated rapidly, At the end of the third week, Sophia's fever spiked dramatically during the night. William, who now slept in an armchair in his daughter's room to monitor her, woke to her pained moans. "Daddy, it hurts," the girl murmured, her eyes glazed, her skin far too hot to the touch. Within an hour, they were at the best private hospital in London. Tests were done in a hurry, doctors were consulted, potent antibiotics were administered intravenously into the small body fighting an invisible enemy. "Sepsis," the intensive care doctor informed a pale and disoriented William. "Her bacterial infection has entered her bloodstream and is spreading rapidly." "How did this happen?" William asked, his voice thick with fear. "Her immune system is extremely compromised by malnutrition and prolonged emotional stress," the doctor explained. "A simple infection that a healthy body would easily fight off has become potentially fatal." The word hung in the air like a sentence. Fatal. Is she going to survive?" William could barely form the words. The doctor hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "The next 48 hours are critical. We are doing everything possible, but I must be honest, her condition is critical. Very critical." William felt the floor disappear from under his feet. How had they reached this point? How had he allowed his daughter, his only treasure, to get into such a critical state? In the hours that followed, a medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize Sophia. She was moved to the pediatric ICU, connected to monitors, tubes, and wires. Her small body seemed even smaller against the white hospital sheets. William did not leave her side for a minute, holding her fragile little hand, whispering promises and prayers. Mrs. Harrison appeared briefly but was sent away by her son in a fit of rage rarely seen in the usually controlled man. "This is your fault," he shouted, decades of resentment finally boiling over. "Your prejudice, your rigidity, your inability to accept you were wrong about Emily. Look what you've caused." The woman left the hospital in tears, for the first time in many years facing the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, in a closed-door meeting among the doctors responsible for the case, the word prognosis was followed by solemn expressions and negative shakes of the head. "She's not responding as we'd hoped," the infectious disease specialist commented, analyzing the latest test results. "The infection is proving resistant to antibiotics, and her organs are starting to show signs of failure." "And there's the psychological component," added the pediatrician. "She seems to have given up fighting. I've seen this before in children who have gone through severe emotional trauma. It's as if they lose the will to live." "We'll increase the dosage and change the antibiotic cocktail," the head physician decided. "But let's be realistic. If there's no improvement in the next 24 hours, we need to prepare the father for the worst." On the fourth floor of the hospital, oblivious to the doctor's conversation, but intuitively sensing the gravity of the situation, William made a decision. He picked up the phone and called his private investigator. "I need you to find Emily Clark," he said, his voice laden with desperation. "I don't care how, I don't care what it costs. Find her and bring her to the London clinic immediately. My daughter's life depends on it." The investigator, who weeks earlier had been hired to find evidence against the nanny, was now given the opposite mission. The irony was not lost on William, who allowed himself a moment of brutal self-criticism. How could he have been so blind? How could he have let his mother manipulate him like that, driving away the only person who truly loved Sophia as she deserved to be loved? In the following hours, a frantic search was launched. Employees from William's company were mobilized. Ads were posted on social media, offering rewards for information. Emily's last known address, the guest house in Clerkenwell, was visited several times, but Mr. Arthur always reported the same thing. "She left early this morning and didn't say where she was going." Meanwhile, completely unaware of the drama unfolding, Emily was walking the streets of central London. She had finally gathered the strength to look for work. She had answered nanny ads, visited employment agencies, left her resume at nursery schools. But her heart wasn't in it. Every time she spoke about her qualifications for caring for children, Sophia's face would appear in her mind, bringing an almost physical pain. Tired after a full day of fruitless walking, she decided to do something she hadn't done in a long time: seek spiritual comfort. Raised by a Catholic grandmother, but with an open mind to different beliefs, Emily had always found peace in sacred places of any religion. She saw a discreet sign indicating a spiritualist center on the next corner, and on impulse, decided to go in. The place was simple: welcoming. A few people sat in silence, meditating or praying. Others spoke in low voices with volunteers from the center. Emily sat on a bench at the back of the room, closing her eyes for a moment, seeking some relief from the constant pain she carried. "You are in great pain," a female voice said beside her, startling her. Emily opened her eyes and found a middle-aged black woman looking at her intently. There was something in her eyes, a wisdom, a presence, that made Emily feel immediately exposed, as if the woman could see through her carefully constructed defenses. "We all have our crosses to bear," she replied evasively. The woman smiled kindly. "My name is Ms. Willow. I am a medium at this center. Something brought me to you, a very strong energy that accompanies you." Under normal circumstances, Emily would have politely ended the conversation. She wasn't particularly superstitious or credulous, but there was something in the calm presence of this woman that made her stay, that made her want to hear more. "What kind of energy?" she finally asked. "Ms." Willow closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening to something inaudible to others. When she opened them again, her expression had changed. There was urgency now. "I see a child," she said, her voice altered deeper. "A girl with golden hair and eyes as blue as the sky." Emily's heart raced. "Sophia, she is calling for you," the medium continued, her eyes now half closed, as if in a trance. "She is in a place with white walls. She is very ill. There are tubes, machines around her." Emily felt the blood freeze in her veins. "A hospital? Sophia is in the hospital?" Miss Willow nodded slowly, still in a trance. "She is drifting away. She is going towards the light. Her soul is tired. It doesn't want to fight anymore." "No!" Emily exclaimed, grabbing the woman's arm forcefully. "What's happening to her? Where is she?" "A hospital, large, modern. Her energy is very weak. She keeps calling for you, calling for Mommy Emily." The medium opened her eyes fully, coming out of the trance, and held Emily's hands tightly. "You must go to her immediately. She is dying, child, and only you can save her." Emily jumped to her feet, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it would leap from her chest. "How can I find her? There are dozens of hospitals in London." Ms. Willow closed her eyes again, concentrating. "I see a name. A clinic?" "Yes, the London Clinic." Without even stopping to say thank you, Emily ran out of the centre, straight into the busy street, where, miraculously, she managed to hail a taxi immediately. "The London Clinic, please," she told the driver, her voice trembling with urgency. "It's an emergency." "That's in Marylebone, love," the cabbie warned. "With this traffic, it'll take nearly an hour. And it'll cost you." "It doesn't matter," Emily replied, already starting to cry. "Please just go as fast as you can. A life depends on it." As the taxi weaved through the chaotic late-afternoon traffic of London, Emily closed her eyes and did something she hadn't done in a long time. She prayed. She prayed with all the strength of her soul, with all the love that overflowed from her heart. She prayed for Sophia, for that child who in such a short time had become such an essential part of her life. "Please, God," she whispered, the tears now streaming freely, "don't take her. She's so little, she has so much life ahead of her. If someone has to suffer, let it be me. But not her. Please, not her." The taxi seemed to move in slow motion, every red light a torture, every traffic jam a torment. Time, that relentless enemy, seemed to stretch infinitely, while in Emily's mind, images of Sophia flashed by. Her newfound smile, her curious questions, the way her little eyes sparkled when she heard stories of brave princesses. "Please hold on, my princess," Emily whispered to the universe, hoping that somehow her words would reach Sophia. "Mommy Emily is on her way. Just a little longer. Hold on." At the London Clinic, oblivious to the desperate race taking place across the city, William had finally succumbed to physical and emotional exhaustion. He was asleep in an armchair beside Sophia's bed, still holding her little hand, his face marked by days of worry and sleepless nights. The monitors continued their constant beeping, recording Sophia's ever-weakening vital signs. The girl had been unconscious for hours, her small body losing the battle against the infection that was spreading mercilessly. The fever, despite all the medication, remained dangerously high. Her heart beat weakly, irregularly. In the doctor's lounge, the responsible team gathered once more. The grim faces said everything the words tried to avoid. "I think it's time we spoke to the father," the head physician finally said. "He needs to be prepared to say goodbye." In her taxi, Emily finally saw the hospital appear before her, a complex of modern, imposing buildings. She paid the fare with the last notes she had in her wallet and ran to the main entrance, her heart in her throat, her soul in tatters. "Sophia Harrison," she said to the receptionist, out of breath. "I need to see her. It's urgent." The woman typed the name into the computer, her face taking on a professional expression of rehearsed compassion. "The patient is in the pediatric ICU. Only immediate family members are allowed." "I am—" Emily hesitated. What was she? Not a mother, not a relative, not anything official. "Please, I'm the person she's calling for. I need to see her. It's a matter of life and death." "I'm sorry, madam, but the rules are clear." Emily felt despair consume her, so close and yet blocked by senseless bureaucracy. It was then that she saw a familiar figure walking quickly down the corridor. William. He was almost unrecognizable. Several days' worth of stubble, deep dark circles under his eyes, crumpled clothes. He looked as if he had aged years in just a few weeks. "William!" Emily called so loudly that several people turned to look. He stopped in his tracks, as if he had heard a ghost. He turned slowly, and when he saw her, his face transformed into a mixture of shock, relief, and desperation. "Emily," he murmured, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. In seconds he was beside her, holding her shoulders. "How? It doesn't matter, you're here." "Sophia," she said, her voice choked. "How is she?" William's face crumbled. There's not much time left. The doctors just called me to prepare me to—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "I need to see her," Emily insisted. "Now, come with me," he said, taking her by the arm and leading her through corridors and elevators, past nurses and doctors who tried to stop them, but backed down in the face of William's authority. In the pediatric ICU, Emily had to put on sterile scrubs, a mask and a cap. Her heart was beating so hard it felt like it would tear through her chest. And then, finally, she entered the room. Nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. Sophia, her vibrant princess, was almost unrecognizable, thin, pale as wax, tubes everywhere. Her skin, once rosy, now had a grayish tone that Emily instinctively recognized as the most dangerous of signs. "My God," she whispered, slowly approaching the bed. The tears came instantly, blurring her vision. William stayed behind, giving her space, watching with his heart in his hand. Emily gently touched Sophia's little hand, startled by how cold it was. She leaned over the bed, bringing her mouth close to the girl's ear. "Sophia," she called softly. "Princess, Mommy Emily is here. Mommy's back." The monitors immediately registered a change in Sophia's heart rate. The nurse on duty approached, checking the numbers with a look of surprise. "That's unusual," he commented, adjusting one of the machines. "She's responding to your voice." Emily held the girl's cold hand between hers, rubbing it gently, trying to transmit warmth and love through her touch. "Sophia," she continued, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mommy Emily is here, my love. I'm here with you and I'm not leaving anymore." The child's eyelids fluttered slightly, the first sign of consciousness in many hours. The doctor who entered the room at that moment froze at the door, watching intently. "Keep talking," he encouraged, approaching quickly to check her vital signs. "She's reacting." Emily swallowed the lump in her throat, forcing herself to sound calm and loving, despite the terror she felt seeing the girl's condition. "Remember our song, Princess? The one we used to sing at bath time?" With a choked voice, Emily began to hum softly, then sing, "Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." The miracle happened before the eyes of everyone in the room. Sophia slowly opened her eyes, those huge blue eyes now clouded by illness but still recognizable. She focused with difficulty on Emily's face, and with immense effort a small, weak smile appeared on her pale lips. "Mommy," she whispered, so softly that only Emily could hear. "Yes, my love," she replied, the tears now streaming freely. "Mommy's here. And we're going to fight together. We're going to win this battle, like the warrior princesses in our stories, remember?" The doctor watched the monitors with growing astonishment. "Incredible," he murmured to William, who was watching the scene with tear-filled eyes. "Her vital signs are stabilizing. Her pressure is rising. Her heartbeat is normalizing." "It's her," William replied, his voice thick with emotion. "It's what I've been saying. Emily is the only one who can reach Sophia. There's something between them that transcends explanation." The doctor nodded slowly. "I see this occasionally in my career. We call it the human factor, when medicine does all it can, but it's the human connection that truly brings the patient back. It's something we can't measure or medicate." In the bed, Sophia kept her little eyes fixed on Emily, as if afraid she might disappear at any moment. Emily sensed this fear and hurried to reassure her. "I'm not going anywhere, Princess, I promise. We'll stay together now, and I'll hold your hand until you're all better again. It's going to be our biggest adventure yet." The medical team, amazed by the transformation, conducted a series of checks, adjusting medications and monitoring. Sophia's temperature, which had stubbornly resisted all antipyretics, finally began to drop. Her breathing became more regular, less labored. "We'll keep her under constant observation," the doctor informed William. "We're not out of the woods yet, but this is the first positive sign we've seen in days. Whatever connection exists between your daughter and this young woman, it is literally saving her life right now." William nodded, unable to form words through the lump in his throat. He timidly approached the bed, as if afraid to break the magic happening there. "Daddy's here too, little one," he said gently, touching Sophia's foot under the sheet. The girl briefly shifted her gaze from Emily to her father, a small acknowledgement, before fixing back on her mommy's face. "Daddy helped me find you," Emily explained, sensing the need to include William in this reconnection. "He knew we needed to be together again." Sophia looked at her father again, this time with something new in her eyes, a spark of childish gratitude. It was enough for the tears William had been holding back to finally overflow. In the hours that followed, Emily did not leave Sophia's side for a second. She spoke to her continuously, told stories, sang softly, always maintaining physical contact, holding her hand, stroking her hair, gently arranging the sheet around her. With each passing hour, the medical team recorded with astonishment the consistent improvement in the child's vital signs. William alternated between sitting silently in the room, watching the interaction between the two, and stepping out to make necessary calls and arrange practical matters. In one of these moments of privacy, Emily finally asked what had been tormenting her. "What happened, Sophia? How did you get so sick?" The girl, still weak but now fully conscious, explained in her simple child's language. "I got too sad. I didn't want to eat anymore or play. I just wanted Mommy Emily back." Emily's heart contracted painfully. "I was so sad without you too, my love. But now we're together again. And you need to get strong so we can play and sing again, okay?" Sophia nodded seriously before adding, "Grandma went away. Daddy shouted at her." Emily tried to hide her surprise. William had confronted Mrs. Harrison. The controlling matriarch had actually left the mansion. When William returned to the room, Emily waited until Sophia had fallen asleep, a peaceful, healing sleep, no longer the semi-comatose state from before, to ask him about it. "It's true," he confirmed, running his hands over his tired face. "When Sophia was admitted, I lost control. Years of resentment, of complying with her control over my life, over Sophia's life. It all exploded at once. I said things I should have said a long time ago." "And where is she now?" Emily asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "At our beach house in Cornwall. She asked for a few days to process events, as she put it." He paused, looking directly into Emily's eyes for the first time since they'd been reunited. "I was wrong, Emily. Terribly wrong to doubt you, to allow my mother to manipulate the situation that way." Emily looked away, the feeling still too raw, the pain still too fresh. "This isn't the time to discuss that. The important thing now is Sophia." "Of course," he agreed quickly, respecting her boundaries. "But I want you to know we found the necklace. Rose, the housekeeper, saw my mother go into your room that morning before you were confronted. She finally found the courage to tell me after Sophia was hospitalized." The confirmation of what Emily had already suspected brought no satisfaction, only a deep sadness for the level of manipulation they had all been subjected to. The next morning, after a night in which Emily slept in an armchair beside Sophia's bed, always holding her hand, the doctors performed a new battery of tests. The results were almost incomprehensible to the medical team. "The infection is receding at a speed I've never seen before," the infectious disease specialist commented, examining the blood slides. It's as if her immune system received a powerful stimulant. It did, replied the child psychologist, who had stopped by to assess Sophia's emotional state. Love is the most potent immunity booster there is, especially in children. This girl was literally dying of a broken heart. Now that she has the person she loves back, her body is fighting with renewed vigor. For 3 days and 3 nights, Emily remained constantly by Sophia's side. She slept only in short naps, ate only what William insisted on bringing her, and refused to leave the room even for basic needs. It was as if she feared that if she stepped away, the girl might relapse. However, there was more to her behavior than simple dedication. In moments when she believed no one was watching, Emily did something peculiar. She would place her hands on Sophia's chest, close her eyes, and murmur inaudible words, like an ancient prayer. Her face would take on an expression of intense concentration, and an almost palpable peace seemed to emanate from her being. William caught her in this ritual in the early hours of the 3rd day. He had gone out for coffee and returned silently to the room. He stopped at the door, witnessing the scene with a mixture of fascination and reverence. "What are you doing?" he asked softly, when Emily finally opened her eyes. She started, clearly embarrassed at being discovered. It's something my grandmother taught me," she explained reluctantly. "She was, well, some people called her a healer, others a wise woman. In the small town in the north of England where I grew up, many sought her out when doctors couldn't help." "A healer," William repeated without the tone of skepticism Emily expected. "Yes. She said some people are born with a gift, the ability to channel healing energy, to direct positive forces to those in need." Emily shrugged, uncomfortable. "I know it sounds like superstition, but she taught me some prayers, some procedures. She said I had inherited the gift, but that it would only fully manifest when I found someone to love with all the strength of my soul." A sad smile appeared on her lips. "I never really believed it, until now." William came closer, looking at Sophia, who slept peacefully, her little face gradually regaining its healthy color. "The doctors are calling her recovery inexplicable. The infection that yesterday was resisting the most potent antibiotics is now practically under control. Her temperature is normal for the first time in weeks." "It's love," Emily said simply. "She needed a reason to fight, to want to live." William looked at her for a long moment. "And what you do, with your hands on her, do you believe that's helping?" Emily hesitated. "I don't know, maybe it's just a comfort to me, a way to feel like I'm doing something beyond just waiting. Or maybe my grandmother was right, and there is something inexplicable that passes from one person to another when love is strong enough." To her surprise, William didn't laugh or scoff. On the contrary, his eyes filled with a deep emotion. "Continue then," he said simply. "Do whatever you need to do, just don't stop." On the afternoon of the 4th day, the miracle was complete. The infection had completely disappeared, the fever had not returned, and Sophia's blood counts were almost normal. The medical team, after consultations and thorough analysis, agreed that she could be moved to a regular room, finally leaving the ICU. "It's the most extraordinary case of recovery I've ever witnessed," the head physician commented to William as he signed the transfer documents. "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it." "I owe it all to her," William replied, looking through the window of the room where Emily was helping Sophia brush her teeth, a simple, mundane task that now seemed like a miracle in itself. "She brought my daughter back to life. Twice." When it was finally time to leave the hospital, 3 days later, Sophia was already walking the corridors, chatting excitedly, and eating with a renewed appetite. The doctors, still amazed by her recovery, recommended regular follow-ups, but agreed she was well enough to return home. "Home," Emily repeated thoughtfully when William mentioned the preparations for their return. They were alone in the hospital cafeteria, while Sophia had one last checkup. "Yes, Emily, home, our home," he replied firmly. "If you want it, of course." She looked him in the eyes, trying to process everything that had happened in the last few weeks. The unjust accusation, the painful separation, the dramatic reunion, the intense days of fighting for Sophia's life. "I don't know if I can go back to that house as an employee," she finally said. "Not after everything." William took her hands across the table, a bold gesture that surprised them both. "I'm not asking you to come back as an employee, Emily. I'm asking you to come back as, Well, as part of our family. Emily's heart sped up. What are you saying exactly? I'm saying I almost lost my daughter because of my pride, my blindness, that I realized in the most painful way possible that you are essential to both of us, for our happiness, for our health, for our lives. He paused, gathering courage. I'm saying I don't want to risk losing you again. And your mother? Emily asked cautiously. She still sees me as a lower-class gold digger. My mother will have to accept my decisions for the first time in her life, William answered with determination. Besides, she saw what happened. She saw how Sophia almost died when you left our lives. Even she, with all her rigidity, cannot deny the evidence before her eyes. Emily looked at their joined hands, feeling the warmth that emanated from that simple contact. There was truth in his words, she realized that. And there was something more, something that had grown slowly between them during the weeks of living together before the separation, and which had now been strengthened in the intense days of their joint vigil beside Sophia. We need to go slow, she said finally. For Sophia. She's been through a terrible trauma and needs stability, security. The smile that lit up William's tired face was like the sunrise after the longest of nights. Slow is perfect, he agreed. We have all the time in the world now. That afternoon, when they left the hospital, Sophia between them, holding both their hands, Emily felt a peace she hadn't experienced since, perhaps ever. The pain of losing her baby, which she had carried like a constant weight for so long, finally seemed to be easing. Not that she loved him less, or had forgotten him. She would never forget. But now there was room in her heart for a new kind of love, a love that didn't replace the old one, but added to it, expanding her capacity to feel, to live fully. Upon arriving at the Harrison mansion, a surprise awaited them. Mrs. Harrison was at the door, clearly waiting for them. Her usually severe face seemed to have aged years in the weeks since Emily had last seen her. There was a vulnerability in her expression that Emily had never imagined possible. William tensed immediately, placing himself protectively between his mother and the two people he loved most in the world. "Mother," he said coldly, "I didn't expect to see you here." "May I speak with you?" Mrs. Harrison asked, her voice devoid of its usual authority. "With all of you." William hesitated, looking at Emily as if for guidance. She gave a slight nod, surprising herself with her willingness to listen to the woman who had caused her so much harm. "Grandma," Sophia exclaimed, letting go of the adult's hands and running to her grandmother. The spontaneity of the gesture, so different from the fearful formality with which the girl used to treat Mrs. Harrison, took everyone by surprise. The older woman knelt, another gesture Emily had never imagined seeing, and hugged her granddaughter, real tears streaming down her usually impassive face. "My girl," she whispered, holding Sophia close. "You're all right. Thank God you're all right." William and Emily exchanged confused glances at this unusual display of emotion. They followed Mrs. Harrison and Sophia into the mansion, to the living room where just weeks before the confrontation that had separated Emily from the family had taken place. "Sophia, dear, why don't you go with Rose to the kitchen for a special snack? Grandma needs to talk to your father and with Emily." The girl looked hesitantly at Emily, still afraid to be separated from her. "It's okay, Princess," Emily assured her, kissing her forehead. "I'll be right here when you finish your snack, I promise." When they were alone, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. Finally, Mrs. Harrison took a deep breath and began to speak. "First, I need to be clear, what I did was unforgivable. I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. I framed you, Emily, deliberately and cruelly. I planted that necklace, I made up lies, I manipulated my own son." The frankness of the confession left Emily momentarily speechless. She had expected denials, justifications, anything but this direct admission. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why hate me so much?" Mrs. Harrison looked out the window for a long moment before answering. "It wasn't hatred for you specifically. It was fear. Fear of losing the control I had maintained for so long. Fear of seeing my son and granddaughter drift away, forming a new family of which I would not be the center." She laughed bitterly. "And the irony? That's exactly what I achieved with my actions. I almost destroyed my family by trying to control it." William, who had remained silent until that moment, finally spoke. "How can we trust you now, after everything?" "You can't," Mrs. Harrison replied simply. "You will have to watch me, test me, see if my actions match my words. All I can do is ask for a chance to prove that I have learned my lesson in the hardest way possible, by watching my granddaughter nearly die because of my pride and prejudice." Emily studied the older woman's face, searching for signs of manipulation or falsehood. Surprisingly, she found none. There was only weariness, regret, and a humility that completely transformed her features. "What do you want from us exactly?" Emily asked. "I want a second chance, not to move back in here. I understand that would be asking too much. I have a flat in Knightsbridge where I can live comfortably. But I want the chance to be a part of Sophia's life, to redeem myself, to be a better grandmother than I have been so far." William looked at Emily, making it clear that the decision was in her hands. It was a huge weight to bear, a responsibility Emily wasn't sure she wanted. But then she remembered something important. Forgiveness wasn't for the one who receives it, but for the one who offers it. Holding on to resentment would only poison her from within, only create more divisions in the family Sophia so desperately needed. "A second chance," she finally agreed, "with clear boundaries, with constant supervision at first, for Sophia's sake." The relief on Mrs. Harrison's face was almost palpable. "Thank you," she said simply, the word carrying the weight of decades of pride finally set aside. When Mrs. Harrison left, promising to return the next day for a brief visit, William and Emily were alone again. He took her hands, looking at her with genuine admiration. "You continue to surprise me," he said softly. "Your heart is bigger than I can possibly imagine." Emily smiled, tired but at peace. "It's not greatness, it's just, I don't want any more pain, any more division. Sophia needs all of us, working together for her well-being." William nodded before adding, "And us? What do we need?" Emily allowed herself for the first time to fully face the question that had been hanging between them since their reunion at the hospital. "Time," she answered honestly. "Time to heal, to rebuild trust, to understand what we really feel for each other." "Time is exactly what we have now," William agreed, bringing her hands to his lips in a delicate gesture that made Emily's heart race. "Thanks to you." That night, when Emily put Sophia to bed, in her room now transformed into a truly childish space, with dolls, storybooks, and vibrant colors, the girl asked a question that caught her off guard. "Mommy, Emily, are you going to marry Daddy?" Emily almost choked on her own saliva. "What? Why are you asking that, Princess?" Sophia shrugged, with the simple, direct logic of children. "Because you look at each other like the princes and princesses in the stories, and because I want you to be my real mommy." Emily kissed the girl's forehead, trying to buy time to organize her thoughts. "You know, Sophia, some things need to happen at the right time. Your daddy and I are getting to know each other better, understanding our feelings. But one thing I can promise, I will always be your mommy in my heart, no matter what happens." The answer seemed to satisfy the child, who smiled sleepily before closing her eyes. Emily stayed by her side until she was sure she was fast asleep, before quietly leaving the room. In the hallway, she found William waiting for her, leaning against the wall, a soft smile on his lips. "I heard," he confessed, without a hint of shame, "her question." Emily blushed intensely. "Children say the most unexpected things." "Actually," he replied, approaching slowly, "I think they simply see what adults try to complicate." And there, in the softly lit corridor of the mansion that had been the scene of so much pain and was now transforming into a real home, William Harrison leaned in and kissed Emily Clark for the first time. A gentle, almost reverent kiss that held questions and promises, past and future. When they parted, they were both smiling, a little shy, a little amazed at the feeling of beginning, of possibility, of renewed hope. "Time," William repeated, echoing the word she had used earlier. "All the time in the world." Emily nodded, allowing herself to believe finally that the best was yet to come, that after the storm, after the near tragedy, there would be light, there would be healing, there would be a true family for all of them. And for Sophia, the girl who had almost been lost, there would be a life full of love, the most potent of medicines, the most powerful of magics, the most extraordinary of blessings. 6 months can completely transform a life, or several. At the Harrison Clark household, this transformation was evident in every detail, in every corner, in every interaction. The house, once a cold and impersonal museum, now pulsed with life. The garden, previously immaculate but sterile, now housed a small vegetable patch that Sophia tended with childish enthusiasm under Emily's patient guidance. In place of the oppressive silence, there were often laughter, music, and the joyful sound of little feet running through the corridors. On a sunny Saturday morning, Emily was in the kitchen baking a chocolate cake, an activity previously unthinkable in Sophia's rigid dietary routine, when she felt two strong arms wrap around her waist from behind. That smells wonderful," William murmured, kissing her neck gently. Emily smiled, leaning back against him for a moment. "It's for the picnic today. Sophia is so excited she woke up at 6. "I noticed," William laughed. "She invaded my room, jumping on the bed and shouting about ants and butterflies." The past 6 months had been a journey of careful rebuilding. Emily had officially moved into the mansion, but had insisted on keeping a separate room. "We need to do this right for Sophia's sake," she had argued, and William had respected her decision, though the growing desire between them made this separation increasingly difficult. Their relationship blossomed slowly, built on solid foundations of mutual respect, honest communication, and above all, a shared love for Sophia. Candlelit dinners after the girl was asleep, long conversations on warm summer nights by the pool, short weekend trips. Each moment together deepened the connection between them. William had also transformed professionally. He delegated more responsibilities at the company, reducing his workday from 16 to 10 hours. He was present for breakfast with Sophia every day and rarely missed the family dinner ritual. "Where's our princess now?" he asked, stealing a bit of cake batter. Emily gave his hand a playful slap. "In the garden with Mrs. Harrison. They're picking flowers for the picnic." The mention of his mother still caused a slight tension between them, but much less than before. Truth be told, Eleanor Harrison had surprised everyone with her genuine process of transformation. She had moved into her flat in Knightsbridge as promised, and visited the family regularly, always respecting the boundaries set by Emily and William. Her relationship with her granddaughter, in particular, had flourished in unexpected ways. Rigidity gave way to patience. Control turned into loving guidance. Eleanor had discovered, at 70, the joy of simply playing with a child, of marveling at small daily discoveries, of being loved without conditions or expectations. "She asked me yesterday if she could take Sophia to the children's theatre next week," Emily commented, putting the cake tin in the oven. "It seems they're performing The Little Mermaid." "And you said?" William asked cautiously. "Yes, of course," Emily replied with a smile. "Your mother is trying, William." And Sophia adores these moments with her grandmother. William hugged her again, more tightly this time. "You're extraordinary, you know that. Most people in your place would still hold a grudge." Emily turned to face him. "Grudges only poison the person who holds them. Besides," she hesitated, searching for the right words, "when we almost lost Sophia, something changed inside me. I realized that life is too precious, too fragile to waste on resentment." He kissed her softly, a kiss that still gave her butterflies, even after months together. "I love you," he said simply. "More every day." "I love you too," she replied, allowing herself the vulnerability of that admission which still scared her a little. The moment was interrupted by Sophia, who ran into the kitchen like a small hurricane of energy. She was almost unrecognizable compared to the pale, silent child of 6 months ago. Her rosy cheeks glowed with health, her blonde hair fell in messy curls after a morning of playing in the garden, and her eyes, those huge blue eyes, sparkled with joy. "Mommy, Daddy, look what Grandma and I found," she exclaimed, holding up a small garden tortoise. "Can we keep him, please, please, please?" "Where did you find this?" Emily asked, crouching down to examine the small reptile. "Near the rose bushes," Eleanor explained, entering the kitchen with more dignity, but equally covered in dirt and with wildflowers decorating her grey hair, an unthinkable image a few months prior. "I believe it's a young Herman's tortoise, completely harmless. Can we build a little house for him in the garden?" Sophia insisted, looking hopefully from one adult to another. "Grandma said you get to decide." The looks William and Emily exchanged contained a complete silent conversation, one of the many skills they had developed in their growing partnership. "That sounds like a great idea, Princess," William agreed. "But we'll have to research how to properly care for a tortoise, what food it needs, how much space." "I can help with that," Eleanor offered. "In fact, I have some books on British reptiles at my flat. I can bring them tomorrow." "Yay!" Sophia celebrated, hugging her grandmother impulsively. "Thank you, Grandma." Eleanor's smile as she returned her granddaughter's hug was one of pure joy, another remarkable transformation that Emily observed with a mixture of admiration and caution. The woman who once seemed incapable of physical displays of affection now hugged her granddaughter naturally, without embarrassment. "And what about our picnic?" Emily reminded them, turning her attention back to the preparations. "We still need to finish packing if we want to get to Hyde Park before noon." "Can I bring the tortoise?" Sophia asked, already anticipating the answer. "Better not, Princess," William explained. "He would get scared with so many people. George can help us set up a temporary shelter for him until we get back." While Sophia ran to find the driver, now promoted to special tortoise consultant, Eleanor timidly approached Emily. "Thank you for letting me be part of these moments," she said in a low voice, so only Emily could hear. "I know I don't deserve it after everything." Emily interrupted her gently. "We're building something new here, Eleanor, all of us. The past is exactly where it should be, behind us." The older woman nodded, her eyes moist. "Sophia asked me the other day if she could call me Grandma Lily instead of Grandma Eleanor. She said Lily sounds more like a fun grandma's name." Emily laughed. "And what did you say?" "That I would love that," Eleanor confessed, looking almost ashamed of her own flexibility. "My husband used to call me that, you know, before he passed away. No one has called me that in almost 30 years. There was a vulnerability in that confession that touched Emily deeply. It was easy to forget that Eleanor also carried her own losses, her own pains that, while not justifying her past actions, at least helped to understand them. "Grandma Lily suits you," Emily said sincerely, "this new version of you." The picnic day in the park was perfect, the kind of day that gets etched in your memory, that creates the fabric of a family. They spread a large checkered blanket under a leafy tree, enjoyed the food prepared with love, ran after soap bubbles, and fed the ducks in the serpentine. Sophia convinced William to push her on the swing as high as the sky, and he obediently complied, while Emily photographed everything with the new camera he had given her. In the late afternoon, Sophia fell asleep exhausted in the back of the car, her head in Emily's lap, a persistent smile on her lips even in sleep. "She looks so peaceful," William commented, watching them in the rearview mirror. Emily stroked the girl's golden hair. "She is. She finally has everything a child needs: security, routine, fun, and above all, unconditional love." When they arrived at the mansion, William carried the sleeping Sophia to her room, now decorated like a real child's room. Walls in soft shades of blue and green, a bed shaped like a little house, shelves full of books and toys. Emily changed her into her favorite unicorn pajamas, while she didn't even stir. The deep, restorative sleep of the innocent. "I don't think she'll be having dinner tonight," William whispered, kissing his daughter's forehead. "That's fine," Emily replied, tucking the blanket around the little one. She ate enough at the park to feed a battalion. They quietly left the room, leaving the door ajar as Sophia preferred. In the hallway, William took Emily's hand, leading her to the terrace overlooking the garden, which was illuminated by soft lights. "I have something for you," he said, suddenly nervous. Emily's heart sped up. She knew that tone, that look. "William." "Wait, let me speak before I lose my nerve," he interrupted, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "These 6 months have been the happiest of my adult life. You transformed not only Sophia, but me as well. You brought light, joy, and love into a house that had only known duty and discipline." Emily stared at the small box, a mix of conflicting emotions washing over her: joy, fear, uncertainty, hope. "I'm not asking you to marry me yet," William continued, surprising her. "I know we're still building our relationship, that there are still wounds healing, trust being rebuilt. This is a promise ring." He opened the box, revealing not a traditional solitaire but a delicate white gold band with small blue stones embedded in it, sapphires that resembled Sophia's eyes. "My promise that when you're ready, when you feel the time is right, I will be here, waiting to make you officially what you already are in our hearts, a permanent and essential part of this family." The tears Emily had been holding back finally overflowed. "It's beautiful," she whispered, allowing William to slide the ring onto her finger. "And perfect. Just like your promise." They kissed under the moonlight, a kiss full of future promises, shared dreams, and a love that had grown from the ashes of misunderstanding and prejudice to become something truly extraordinary. "How long do you think Sophia will give us before she starts planning the wedding?" William joked when they finally parted. Emily laughed, "Knowing our daughter. Approximately 12 hours, maybe less." The way the word hour had come so naturally from her lips did not go unnoticed by either of them. It was the simplest and yet most profound truth. Sophia was their daughter now, united by bonds that transcended blood or legal documents. That night, for the first time, Emily did not return to her separate room. She slept in William's arms, lulled by the quiet certainty of being exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly who she was meant to be with. Outside the window, a particularly bright star twinkled in the London sky. Emily looked at it before falling asleep and smiled, remembering her healer grandmother, her baby she never got to meet, and all the winding, painful paths that had somehow led her here, to this perfect moment of fullness and peace. "Thank you," she whispered to the universe, before closing her eyes and surrendering to sleep in the arms of the man she loved, under the same roof as the child she had saved, and who, in return, had saved her too. The next morning, as predicted, Sophia burst into the room without knocking, a hurricane of tousled hair and crumpled pajamas, and froze momentarily upon seeing Emily there, nestled in her father's arms. "Finally!" the girl exclaimed, jumping onto the bed and squeezing in between them. "I thought you two were never going to sleep together like real parents." William and Emily exchanged glances over the little girl's head, part embarrassed, part amused by her childish frankness. "Good morning to you too, little hurricane," William replied, kissing the top of his daughter's head. "Does this mean we're going to be an official family now?" Sophia asked, suddenly serious. "With a wedding and everything?" Emily showed her the ring on her finger. "It's a promise, princess. One day, yes, we'll be an official family with all the stamps and papers. But did you know we're already a real family in the ways that truly matter?" Sophia considered this, wrinkling her nose in concentration. "I guess so, but a wedding party would be really cool. Can I be the flower girl? Can I wear a dress just like yours but smaller? Can we have a giant chocolate cake?" Emily and William laughed, relieved by the girl's immediate acceptance. "When the time comes, you'll be the most beautiful flower girl there ever was," Emily promised. "And as for the cake, well, we'll have to negotiate that." "And babies?" Sophia continued, unstoppable in her investigation. "Am I going to have little brothers and sisters? I want at least 3. 2 boys and a girl, or maybe 2 of each." Emily choked on air, while William tried to control his laughter. "Sophia," he said, taking on the role of savior, "how about we go have breakfast? I'm starving." The distraction tactic worked perfectly. In seconds, the girl was dragging them both to the kitchen, chattering about pancakes and the tortoise they needed to visit. As they prepared breakfast together, a new and precious family tradition, Emily allowed herself to imagine, just for a moment, a future with more children running through that house, filling it with even more love and joy. The idea, which once would have been too painful because of her loss, now brought only a comforting warmth, a gentle anticipation. "What are you thinking about?" William asked, noticing her distant smile as she mixed the pancake batter. "The future," she replied simply, "about all the wonderful possibilities that await us." He smiled, understanding without needing further explanation. It was like that between them now, a silent communion of thoughts, feelings, dreams. "It's going to be extraordinary," he promised, and Emily knew with a certainty that came from the depths of her soul that he was absolutely right. The future would be extraordinary because the present already was, built on love, forgiveness, second chances, and the most powerful magic of all, the unbreakable connection between hearts that recognize each other, that save each other, that together create a home where once there was only a house. 5 years can pass in the blink of an eye when you live each day to the fullest. In the life of the Harrison Clark family, those years were a sequence of small and large moments that, together, wove the tapestry of a shared life. The garden of the Kensington mansion was stunning on that spring afternoon. Elegantly decorated tables with wildflowers were scattered across the impeccable lawn. Colorful balloons danced in the gentle breeze. A large banner hung between 2 ancient trees announced, "Happy 7th birthday, Sophia." Emily adjusted the final details of the cake, a spectacular creation in the shape of a castle with purple icing towers and small figures of warrior princesses on top, exactly as the birthday girl had requested. "It's perfect," William said, coming up behind her and hugging her. His touch was different now. His hand rested naturally on Emily's 4-month pregnant belly, where the newest member of the family was growing. "Do you think she'll like it?" Emily asked, still a little nervous. This was the first big party they had organized for Sophia. In previous years, the girl was still adjusting, preferring smaller, more intimate celebrations. "She'll love it," he assured her, kissing her neck, "just like she loves everything you do for her." A baby's cry came through the monitor Emily always carried with her. "Michael's woken up from his nap," she sighed, "just when there's only an hour until the party." "I'll go," William offered. "You've been on your feet since 5 this morning, preparing everything. Rest for a bit." Emily smiled gratefully. The partnership they had built was one of the greatest treasures of her life, not just in romantic love, which blossomed more each day, but in the balanced division of responsibilities, in mutual respect, in understanding each other's needs. While William went to get their 2-year-old son, Emily sat in a chair in the shade, caressing the belly where their third child, a girl according to the ultrasound, was developing healthily. Sometimes she still had to pinch herself to believe all this happiness was real. The wedding had taken place 2 years after William's proposal, enough time for all the wounds to heal completely, for the foundations of their relationship to solidify. It was a simple ceremony in the mansion's own garden, with only close family and friends. Sophia, then 4, was the most enthusiastic flower girl ever, throwing rose petals everywhere except down the aisle. Michael was born a year later, a chubby baby with William's eyes and Emily's smile. And now, with the family growing again, happiness seemed to multiply exponentially. "Lost in thought?" asked Eleanor, or Grandma Lily, as everyone now called her, approaching with a tray of fresh lemonade. "Just counting my blessings," Emily replied, accepting a glass with gratitude. The relationship between the two women had evolved into something neither of them would have thought possible years ago. A genuine friendship based on mutual respect and, surprisingly, on several affinities discovered over time. Eleanor had revealed herself to be a caring and present grandmother, perfectly balancing the role of an authority figure with that of a partner in small mischief. With Michael, she was pure butter. The grandson had his grandmother wrapped around his little finger from his first smile. "There's nothing more precious than family," the older woman said, sitting beside Emily. "It took me 7 decades to truly learn that." Emily smiled, remembering how long and sometimes difficult the path to this moment of harmony had been. It's never too late to learn the really important lessons. "Speaking of lessons," Eleanor continued, taking a small wrapped gift from her bag, "I brought something I'd like to give you before the party starts, and the rush takes over." Emily carefully unwrapped the package and found an antique silver necklace with a star-shaped pendant. Small green tourmalines, the stone associated with healing and protection, adorned the piece. "It was my grandmother's," Eleanor explained. "It was passed to my mother, then to me. It's always been a tradition to pass it to the next woman in the family who is expecting a girl." Emily felt her eyes fill with tears. The gesture symbolized much more than the jewelry itself. It was the final acceptance, the acknowledgement that she was, indisputably, part of the Harrison family. "Eleanor, I don't know what to say." "Say that you'll continue to make my son and my grandchildren happy," the older woman replied simply. "That's all I ever wanted, even when I chose the worst ways to try to ensure it." Emily hugged her, feeling the growing fragility of her mother-in-law, now 75, and the strength of the bond they had built despite everything. "Mommy! Grandma Lily!" Sophia's excited voice interrupted the moment. The girl ran across the garden, beautiful in her party dress, her blonde hair in an elaborate braid decorated with flowers. "The guests are arriving." And they were. Luxury cars parked at the mansion's entrance, bringing Sophia's schoolmates, the children of William's friends and partners, and distant relatives of the Harrisons. Elegantly dressed children ran through the garden, filling the air with laughter and joyful shouts. "Look who I found trying to escape the party," William joked, approaching with Michael in his arms. The boy, the spitting image of his father with his mother's eyes, broke into a huge smile upon seeing Emily. "Mama!" he exclaimed, stretching out his chubby little arms. Emily took him, covering his little face with kisses. "How's Mommy's prince? Ready for your sister's party?" Michael responded with a sequence of enthusiastic babbles, pointing at the colorful balloons. The celebration was exactly as Sophia had dreamed, perfect in every detail. There were traditional games, a treasure hunt through the garden, a magician who enchanted children and adults, and a surprise puppet show telling the story of a brave princess who, with the help of loyal friends, saved an enchanted kingdom. When it was time to sing Happy Birthday, Sophia was radiant, surrounded by friends and the family that had grown in unexpected and wonderful ways. Emily watched her make a silent wish before blowing out the candles, her eyes shut tight with the typical concentration of children who still fervently believe in magic. Later, when most of the guests had left and the staff hired for the party were cleaning up, the family gathered on the terrace for a quiet moment. Michael was asleep in Eleanor's lap, exhausted after so much excitement. William and Emily sat side by side, their intertwined hands resting on the belly where little Louisa, a name chosen in honor of Emily's grandmother, the healer whose stories now enchanted Sophia, was growing. "It was the best birthday ever," the girl declared, snuggling between her parents. "Everyone said it was the coolest party they'd ever been to." "I'm glad you liked it, Princess," Emily replied, kissing her forehead. "And what was your favorite part?" "Everything," Sophia exclaimed, before thinking better of it. "But I think the best part was when the magician did that trick where he tore up your picture and then it appeared whole again inside the envelope. Like he fixed something that was broken." Emily and William exchanged meaningful looks. Of all the elaborate and expensive things at the party, the magician's unintentional metaphor was what had impressed their daughter the most. "Did you know that's how life works sometimes?" William commented. "Things that seem broken, hopelessly lost, somehow get put back together and become even more beautiful than before." "Like our family?" Sophia asked, ever perceptive. "Exactly like our family," Emily confirmed, feeling emotion tighten her throat. As the sun set, painting the London sky with shades of pink and gold, Emily thought about all the twists and turns life had presented her. The painful loss of her baby, which at the time had seemed like the end of all possibility of happiness, coming to London for a fresh start, meeting Sophia, that pale, unhappy child who had transformed into the vibrant, confident girl now resting against her shoulder. The traumatic separation, the near-fatal illness, the desperate reunion. And then the rebuilding, the forgiveness, the creation of new bonds, stronger because they were forged in overcome adversity. "What are you thinking about?" William asked softly, noticing her distant gaze. "About how unpredictable life is," she replied. "About how the worst moments are sometimes just doors to the best ones." He nodded, understanding perfectly as always. "Remember what you told me that day at the hospital, when Sophia started to get better? That love is the most powerful medicine? That's it. You were right then, and you're even more right now." Sophia, who was listening to the conversation, sat up to look into Emily's eyes. "Mummy, what was your wish when you blew out the candles on your last birthday?" "I can't tell," Emily smiled, "or it won't come true." "But if it already came true, you can tell," the girl argued with flawless logic. Emily laughed. "All right, I wished for exactly what I have now, a healthy, happy family, full of love." Sophia seemed satisfied with the answer. "I also wished for something that's already happening." "Really?" William asked, curious. "And what was that?" "I wished for Louisa to be born soon so our family can be even more complete," she revealed, reverently stroking Emily's belly. "And I also wished to have magic powers like my great-grandma you always talk about, Mummy." Emily exchanged an amused look with William. Sophia's admiration for the stories about Emily's healer grandmother grew every day. The girl had even started her own healing practice, treating sick dolls and stuffed animals with the laying on of hands and made-up chants. "You know, Princess," Emily said, pulling her closer, "I believe magic powers aren't something we're born with, but something we develop throughout our lives." "What do you mean?" Sophia asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "The power to make people feel loved, to bring joy where there was sadness, to heal the wounds of the heart. Those are real powers that anyone can develop with practice and intention." "And do I already have some of those powers?" the girl asked hopefully. "More than you can imagine," Emily answered sincerely. "You healed a very broken heart a few years ago." "Yours?" Sophia guessed. "Mine," Emily confirmed, emotional. "When I lost my first baby, I thought I would never be happy again. And then I met a little blue-eyed princess who needed love as much as I needed someone to love. Sophia hugged her tightly, understanding the importance of the moment even at her young age. So we healed each other. Exactly, Emily whispered into her hair. And that is the most powerful magic of all. William joined the hug, wrapping them both in his strong arms. Eleanor, still holding the sleeping Michael, watched the scene with moist eyes. I think this deserves a picture, she commented, trying to hide her emotion. They called over one of the staff members who was still finishing the party cleanup, and the whole family posed for the photograph, Emily and William sitting side by side, Sophia between them, sleepy Michael in Eleanor's lap, who had knelt beside them to get in the frame. Say family, the young man requested, adjusting the camera. Family, they all exclaimed together, their faces lit up by genuine smiles that reflected the joy overflowing from their hearts. The flash went off, capturing forever that perfect moment, not because it was without challenges or scars from the past, but precisely because it was real, earned, built brick by brick, with love, patience, forgiveness, and faith in the transformative power of second chances. Later, when the children were asleep, and the house had finally fallen silent, Emily and William walked hand in hand through the garden under the starry sky. The full moon lit their path, creating soft shadows among the trees. Remember the first time we talked out here? William asked, stopping under the same tree where, years before, they had almost kissed for the first time before being interrupted by Eleanor. I remember, Emily smiled. You had just given me your credit card for shopping, and I was trying to explain that I didn't want expensive gifts. And now, he teased, do you still resist when I try to give you gifts? Now I know your love doesn't come with conditions or expectations, she replied, hugging him. The gifts are just one of the many ways we express what we feel for each other. William kissed her under the moonlight, just as he had after his marriage proposal years ago. When they parted, they both instinctively looked at the lit-up mansion, where their children slept safely, where they had created a true home. If someone had told me 5 years ago that my life would be like this today, William began. You wouldn't have believed it, Emily completed. Neither would I. But here we are. Here we are, he repeated, placing his hand on the belly where his daughter was growing. And it's only the beginning. Emily closed her eyes, breathing in the fragrant garden air, feeling the warmth of the man she loved beside her, the gentle movement of her unborn daughter, the deep peace of someone who has finally found her place in the world. The beginning of many wonderful stories, she agreed, opening her eyes to the starry sky, where one particularly bright star twinkled as if winking just for her. She smiled at that star, silently thanking all the painful paths that had brought her here, all the losses that had made space for new gains, all the endings that were just beginnings in disguise. Life had its own plans, unpredictable and often better than anything we could imagine for ourselves. And sometimes, just when we think all is lost, the universe sends us a miracle disguised as the everyday, a child who needs to be loved, a heart willing to try again, a second chance that arrives precisely when we are ready to embrace it. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Emily and Sophia has touched your hearts. This journey of love, loss, and redemption reminds us that there is always hope, even in the most difficult moments. If this narrative stirred emotions in you, be sure to subscribe to our channel to receive new, equally engaging stories. Click the button to your left and hit the notification bell. Also, leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion is valuable and helps us create even better content. Every day we bring original stories that explore the complexity of human feelings and the transformative power of love. Join us on this emotional journey, and don't miss our next publications.